Hello, welcome to episode 2 of Painting Marvel Crisis Protocol. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I paint Baron Zemo from the core box set. So the first thing I'm going to do is start working on his eyes. And for that, I'm going to use my Pro Acryl Coal Black. And just going to finish up his eyes here. And just throw in just a little bit of paint. And this might go over a little bit, but we're going to clean that up when we paint the rest of his mask. So I'm going to throw that down, let that dry, and show you what the next step is going to be. So now that that is all done, I'm going to come in with a little bit of Vallejo Model Color Ivory and put just a small dot in his eye socket here to show the eyes. And this is, if you're like me and hate painting eyeballs, this is probably the worst part of painting the mini. So just kind of do your best to get it center and start small. And if it doesn't work, like mine is not working here, I'm just going to clean off my brush, come in, clean off that eye socket there before that paint dries, and try one more time. So I'm going to get this eyeball painted up, or this eye socket here painted up, and we'll move to the next step. So now that I was able to get his eye sockets at least operational for now, I'm going to work on his gloves and his inner shirt. And for that, I've done an equal mix of Vallejo Game Color Charred Brown and Vallejo Model Color Royal Purple. And again, this is about a 50-50 mix, and I'm going to come in and do these gloves right here. This top, and if you see there's a little V on his chest, I'm going below that V, and then his other glove that's holding his sword. So I'm going to get these painted up, and we'll move to the next step. So now that I have the jacket and the hands, or I'm sorry, the gloves all painted, I'm going to go ahead and paint the helmet, his mask, and the very top of his shirt here. And what I've done is Vallejo Model Color Purple. I've done 2 drops of purple, 1 drop of Vallejo Model Color Dark Prussian Blue, and 1 drop of Pro Acryl red here. This is the color that I have on my palette. And I'm going to come in and just paint the top of the shirt here and his mask slash helmet in this purple color. And you want to leave on the side of his head is this little, I don't know, part of his helmet, and then it kind of wraps around the front. You want to leave all of that unpainted. So I'm going to leave that unpainted, and we'll come back to that when we put some other colors down, and then just get it all around the rest of his helmet. So I'm going to get this all painted up, and then we'll move to the next step. So there's the purple all done, and now I'm going to come in and finish up some of the gold parts, and I'm going to do it with Vallejo Metal Color Gold. And I'm going to come around and hit this headpiece that he has. There are a couple little buckles here on his wristband, so I'm going to get those. And then I'm actually going to do the entire hilt of the sword here in this gold, and get that all covered up. You can probably hear my dog in the background. She wants to say hi. She wants to be on YouTube. So I'm gonna get my layers down on this, and then we'll move to the next color. So I'll be right back. Okay, so when it comes to painting, I forgot to mention his belt buckle right there also needs to be gold. So now I'm going to come in and paint his jacket, and for that I'm going with Vallejo Model Air Camo Pale Brown, and I'm just going to hit the jacket. Start back here. Might be a little runny, so we'll get rid of some of that paint. We'll just get the jacket all painted up, and so I'll get some layers on here, and we'll move to the next step. Okay, so now that we have the jacket all finished up, we're gonna go ahead and move to the pants. And for the pants, I'm using the Pro Acryl dark neutral gray. We're just gonna come in and make sure we get the pants all painted up. I really do like these Pro Acryl colors. They flow really easily. They have really good coverage. They're just really good. And I've typically been a Vallejo user, but I'm kinda slowly making the transition over to the Pro Acryl. And since they are from Arizona, or at least it seems like they're from Arizona, I know they have a warehouse here or whatever, it's easy for me to support kind of a local business. Anyway, I'm gonna get this all painted up. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and we'll show you what his pants look like. Now that his pants are all painted up here, we're going to go ahead and do his belt and his boots. I'm going to do a 50-50 mix of Pro Acryl Coal Black and Vallejo Model Color Deep Sea Blue, or Dark Sea Blue. And again, this is a 50-50 mix. This is going to come off a little bluish, but we're going to fix this later. We're just going to come in and do these boots here, and paint up this belt. So I'm going to get this painted up, and we'll move to the next step. So now these boots are done, I'm actually going to start painting the cuffs of his jacket, and for that I'm using Vallejo Model Air UK Light Stone. And again, I'm just getting the inside cuffs here on each arm, and I want to avoid the gold that I already have there, but if there's any mistakes we'll just fix it, so it's not a big deal. So I'll finish getting these painted up and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is paint the cuffs of his jacket, and for that I'm going with a 50-50 mix of Vallejo Game Color Cold Gray and Vallejo Game Color Bone White. And you just want to hit basically all of the rest of the V-Mini that's unpainted, which is just the cuffs around the jacket here. You're going to be painting this little piece of lining here, and then I made a mistake and painted this bottom portion here, so you're going to want to paint that. And so I'm going to get all these painted up, and then we're going to start doing some highlights. So we'll be right back. So now that all the base colors are down, I'm going to go ahead and do an all over shade. I'm going to do 1 part of Nuln Oil and 3 parts of Lamia Medium. And I'm just going to go over and do the entire mini except for what's left of his sword. I know we haven't done that yet, but we'll get to that. But this is to get some shade on here really quick and easy. And with the medium, it's going to be diluted and get to better spaces. So I'm going to finish this up and I'll be right back. So now that the wash has dried, we're just going to go through and start to highlight. Oh, where are you at? Get in frame. There you go. Start to highlight the rest of Baron Zemo. So I'm going to start with the gloves, which is just a 50-50 mix of Beastie Brown. Actually, I'm sorry. It's, yeah. We'll do Beastie Brown and purple here. And just hit the tops of the gloves. Making sure to keep that wash in the deepest recesses. So I'm going to go ahead and paint up his gloves and show you what that looks like before we start highlighting some more of the gloves. So I will be right back. So now that those gloves are base coated back up and left the shade in the recesses, I'm adding just a tip of ivory to that color, and I want to hit the brightest highlights on his gloves, on his fingertips, on his knuckles and such, just to show a little bit of wear and a little bit of highlighting to make his fingers pop just a little bit more. And it'll, once everything is highlighted up, it'll actually look pretty good, I think. Ooh, not his pants though. So I'm going to finish highlighting up where I'm going to do this. Again, it's just going to be on mainly the knuckles and some of the lining that you'll see in between his fingers and such. So I'm just gonna get this highlighted and then we'll move to the next step. Okay, so there's what those final highlights look like on the gloves. So now I'm gonna come in and start to highlight his undershirt and his helmet. And for that, I'm just going to come in with Vallejo Model Color Purple at first, just to get a base layer down. I actually kind of like the more purple look of Baron Zemo. So I'm just going to start light at first and get his helmet all painted up. I still want to leave a lot of that base coat underneath, because I do want there to be some shade. And the reason we went darker on that base coat is to make this purple a little darker. And I got just a little bit in his eye, so I'll come in and get that out of there before that dries. But I'm going to go ahead and, as you can tell, I'm kind of shaky today and I'm not sure why. But I'm going to go ahead and get this all cleared up. I'll probably end up putting a fresh coat of ivory in that eye socket there. But I'm going to get him all painted up and then I'll show you what our next step is. So there's Baron Zemo all paint it up with that purple, and now I'm going to come in with that purple color once again, that Vallejo model color purple, and again I'm going to add some ivory to it to start getting some highlights. And I want to hit around the eyes and a lot of the face area where his mouth and nose and such would be. And I'm drawing it towards where his mouth would be. That way the last of the pigment hits exactly where I want it to. So we're gonna just, and I'm gonna actually stay here while I do these highlights. I'm gonna hit underneath this eye. And same thing over here underneath this eye, and draw that highlight towards that nose section. I'm going to do just a little bit of where his eyebrow would be in if his mask wasn't there. There's some folds here in his undershirt, so we get some of those, and do just a couple of lines down his chest. And then for the top of his mask, I actually just want to kind of hit the top of his mask. And again, I'm pulling that pigment towards the front. So if you're looking at him from a front view, you're going to see more of that purple highlight of that lighter purple than you see from the back. And that's to kind of simulate where light would be hitting his head. Yeah, so I'm going to just kind of finish up the rest of this. Again, all I'm doing is that same color, and I'm just kind of going in multiple layers until it gets to a brightness that I like. But I showed you what I'm doing, so now I'm just going to kind of finish it up and add some more color to it, and then we'll move to our next step. So Baron Zemo's head and his shirt are highlighted up. You can actually go even brighter if you wanted to hit like the ridge of his nose. I may come back to that later, but I decided not to for now. So now I'm going to do his cuffs, and for that I'm coming in with Vallejo Model Air UK Light Stone, and I'm just going to come around and hit his cuffs. And depending on how you want your Baron Zemo to look, if you want him dirty, you can leave this and the white on his jacket as that dark dingy gray. If you want him to be kind of bright, you can highlight these up. I'm going with a bright for now, and if I don't like the brightness, I can always just come back with a wash or two of that Nuln Oil and get him highlighted up that way. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these cuffs, and we'll move to the next step. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and work on his headband and his belt buckle and the hilt of his sword. So for that I'm coming in with the Vallejo metal color gold, and I added just a tiny hint of game color silver to kind of give it just a little bit more pop. It's not much, so I'm just gonna go ahead and highlight all of the gold areas once again. I'm gonna start with his mask and just hit those gold areas to make it look, well, gold. So I'll get this painted up and show you how it highlights, hopefully, with that silver mixed in. So I'll finish that and we'll be right back. Okay, we got the gold all highlighted up, and it might not look as gold as it looks in person, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and highlight the jacket. I'm going to come back in with the Vallejo Model Air Camo Pale Brown, and I want to leave a lot of the shade in those recesses there, and just kind of hit a lot of the highlights, a lot of the, and we're going to come back and hit the edges, but a lot of the raised jacket, the raised fabric, and leave a lot of that shading in that lining. So I'm gonna spend a while doing that. And I'll come back and we're gonna do some edge highlighting on the jacket after that's done. So I'll finish that up and show you what's next. Okay, so that's what the jacket looks like currently after being highlighted back up. So now what I'm going to do is come in and do some edge highlighting. So I've added some ivory to that base color of Camo Pale Brown, and I'm just going to come in and hit a lot of these exposed edges and a lot of the wrinkles in the fabric that are sticking up. This is one of those things where you can do it kind of as much or as little as you want. The more that you highlight, obviously the more it's going to stand out. And the good thing about fabric is you can actually highlight it with just about any color. You can add it to that base color if you want it to be. You can add some yellow to it if it's like a brown and you want it to be kind of a tanned yellow. You can add some black to it. I feel that fabric is very forgiving in how you highlight it. You always want to pick some complementing colors, but you're not limited to just a lighter shade of what you just did. So I'm going to finish this up and I will come right back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to come in on this undershirt here with a little bit of charred brown. I should show you the color. Vallejo game color, charred brown to be exact. And I'm just going to hit a lot of these ridges here. And I'm not going too in depth because I'm actually going to come right back in and add a little bit of that previous color into the charred brown. So it's going to end up being charred brown mixed with ivory and beastie brown. I know it's a little bit weird. And then we're just going to hit a lot of these edges here of his shirt. And that's it for that. So we're going to go ahead and move to our next step. So be right back. So this is the next step here, and this is another thing. It depends on how dirty you want your Baron Zemo to look. I've gone kind of cleanish with mine. So I'm going to come in and highlight the edges of some of the frills on the jacket. So I'm going to do Vallejo model color sky gray, and I'm just going to come in and hit all of these areas here, and I want to keep a lot of the dark color underneath so you can see it. So I'll just kind of doing almost like an overbrush of this. So I'm gonna get this all squared away, and I'll be right back. Okay, and I only did one coat of that Vallejo model color sky gray, because I wanted it to still look kind of dingy and dirty on his jacket. So you can kind of see that gray, and you can see the dark gray underneath it. So now I'm going to come back and do his boots and his belt, and for that I'm doing Pro Acryl Black with a 50-50 mix of Vallejo model color dark sea blue. You saw me do this last time, so I'm just gonna come in real quick and get this highlighted before we do some edge highlights on his belt and his boots. So again, you want to kind of leave a lot of that base color in the deepest recesses and just kind of hit the higher parts. So yeah, I'm gonna get this done and then we'll come back and do some highlighting. Okay, so now I'm gonna come in and do some edge highlighting. I added just a little bit of ivory to that base color, and I'm just gonna come in and start to hit the parts that I think would stand out. And so it's gonna be, you know, around some of the pockets on the belt, and I'll probably add a little bit more ivory to this and give it another coat. I want to hit a lot of these like accoutrements, these little buckles it looks like on his belt. Not sure what these are, to be honest, but I'm gonna hit this lining here on the belt, kind of anywhere, or I'm sorry, the boots, kind of anywhere that I feel that light would be hitting it, and adding just a little bit of reflection, or making the fabric or whatever I'm painting just a little bit brighter. So I'm gonna come in and do a lot of these highlights, and then I think I'm gonna add some more ivory, but before I do that I'll show you what this step looks like, and then we'll add some more color and do some more edge highlighting here. Yeah, so I'll get this done and come right back. So here's a little bit of the highlighting on the boots and the belt and whatnot. So now I'm going to add, like I said, a little bit more ivory to that. I want to give it a brighter hit. It's not quite where I want it to be. I do want it to stand out, but I don't want it to be atrocious either. So I'm going to come in with some more ivory, and as you can tell, I'm going to hit these corners here to help them stand out just a little bit more. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and continue doing that and move on to the next step. So I'll be right back. So now I'm going to go ahead and highlight the pants, and what I've done is come back to dark neutral gray from Pro Acryl and added in some medium sea gray by, come on now, Vallejo model color. It's about a 2-to-1 ratio, and again, this is one of those things where you can come in and do as much or as little as you want on the highlights. You know, the more you do, the brighter it's going to be, obviously, but you don't want it to stand out too much. So I'm just kind of hitting a lot of the raised areas, a lot of the creases and folds and such, places that you would naturally see light. And depending on how you look at your mini under the light, you'll actually see a lot of areas where it looks a little lighter than some of the surrounding area. And that's a good spot to start if you're wondering where to put highlights. That's a real good spot to start. You can also take pictures of what your mini looks like under different lights if you're looking for a specific type of effect. But I'm just going to come in and just hit all these highlights here, and all we have left is the sword and some buckles that I forgot on his jacket, and it would have worked a lot better had I remembered them earlier. I was actually going to go for a non-metallic metal look on both his his buckles and his sword, but I tested it out, and it's not something that I'm at a point comfortable doing yet, so I'm going to keep working on it. If you're looking for a good tutorial on some non-metallic metal, and somebody that really gave me a lot of I liberate a lot of ideas from him and kind of, you know, obviously make it my own. I really recommend Sarastro's painting. You can find him on YouTube. He does a lot of Marvel Crisis Protocol, Star Wars Legion. There's some Lord of the Rings board games, some Gloomhaven, some Zombicide. There's a lot of different stuff on there, and he's extremely talented. His editing's really good. Sarastro is awesome. So if you're looking for, like, I'm a tabletop painter, and that's what I'm gonna help everybody get to on this. He's definitely an above board tabletop painter. He's very good. I highly recommend watching that. But anyway, enough of me rambling on promoting somebody else's channel, right? I'm going to finish up these highlights here, and we'll move to our next step. So that's how I ended up doing his pants. You can always go, obviously, a little brighter if you want to. On our last step, we're going to paint the buckles on his jacket and the blade. Again, this probably would have been easier if I had done it earlier and hit it with the shade. I had a plan to do non-metallic metal, and I'm not quite there where I feel confident with it yet. But anyway, I'm going to come in with a little model color natural steel, and we're just going to hit the sword. And this is something that if you had done on step one, or not step one, but the base colors, shading it with that Nuln oil would have looked really good. So I'll probably come in and, you can hear a phone in the background, obviously. Come in and, depending on how this looks, I may hit it with some Nuln oil, or I may just leave it and then hit the edge highlights. The buckles are here on the jacket. Again, this would have been way easier had I done it earlier. But yeah, I'm gonna get this done and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, and now that the sword and the belt buckles are dry, I'm gonna come in with a highlight of Vallejo Game Air. Where are we at here? Where are we at? Come on now. Silver. And just kind of hit the edges here to give it some more pop. Because that silver is a much brighter effect than just that natural steel. Yeah, so I'm going to highlight the edge here on this sword. And I'm gonna go down this ridge here in the middle. And yeah, that'll do it. So I'm gonna finish that up and we'll come back. Okay, so here's a final look at Baron Zemo all painted up. I'm gonna paint the base just like I did with Ultron. But yeah, there's Baron Zemo. If you have any questions that I can answer or anything you want to add, just let me know. Don't forget to do the normal things of like, comment, subscribe, share. And remember, painted minis roll better than gray minis. So just paint something. It'll look way better on the table and it'll perform better too. Till next time.